Welcome back to our final instruction in our 5-part video series, which included the introduction, of course, and that is the fourth elephant in the room: performance and function. Okay, we're going to talk about that at length here. Again, we've already talked about trust, distinction, commitment, and now performance. And keep in mind, many of these 4 elephants are interrelated. Trust, commitment, they're interrelated. But if you can distinguish yourself, once again, as we talked about earlier, in your industry, make yourself a resource, talk about your story, that makes you distinctive. Again, we talked about trust. Trust is always about emotion. It's about authenticity. It's about transparency. We talked about that, okay? If you have any further questions, again, give me a call. We'll go through that again. And again, commitment is also related to trust. What is your commitment outside what everyone else is doing inside the sales context? Again, it's related to distinction, but a little bit different. There's a subtle difference there. The elephant we're going to talk about now is, again, performance. So for example, your client, the person you're selling to, the person you're arguing toward, whatever, they assume that the phone's going to work. They assume that the car's going to operate. They assume that the bank account's going to have your money, and then when you go to the bank, the teller's going to give you money if you have money in your account. That's performance. But remember, true performance is not just the function. Again, the client already knows the car's going to work. They assume that. That's the elephant in the room. But what they're thinking is, what are you going to do after the transaction? What are you going to do based on what you said to me when you were performing? When you said, I'm going to do this and that when I sell you this phone after the transaction, they're going to remember what you said. That's part of performance. So the point here is, performance isn't just function. It's what you said. It's what you promised. The client's going to remember that because it's an emotional experience. Most sales are an emotional purchase experience, unless it's something like a utility or paying your gas bill or that type of thing. But if they're buying a car, they're buying a home, any of those kinds of things, it's an emotional experience, and they're going to remember what you said. They expect the home not to leak and the windows not to, fall down when you leave the room and all the doors to work. That's function. But remember, performance and outstanding salespeople in the isn't just a transaction context, because remember, all we're doing here is we're wanting you to build sustainable relationships after the transaction. And by doing that, you have to remember everything that you say as you're performing and as you're selling, because your client's going to remember that. So be very cognizant of what you say. Remember, we talked about commitment. If you're not willing to make a commitment by answering your phone 6 days a week or whatever, don't say it, because you're establishing that expectation. We talked about establishing an expectation in the commitment video. Remember, it also is related to the performance piece. When you're establishing an expectation, once the car's delivered and you said to that client, guess what? If that car breaks down, you can call me and I'll take care of it. Unless you're willing to abide by that commitment, then that client's going to be very upset with you, not just the function. So once again, it's not just about function. It's not just about the deliverable. It's not just about the object. It's about what you said. And if you apply all these other techniques to your performance, to the end game when the client says, yes, I'm going to buy this, if you apply trust, if you apply your distinctiveness, your story, remember we talked about your convictions, your values, your legacy, if you apply your commitment to that client after the sale, then not only do you have the functionality, the completion of the sale, but you have a sustainable relationship that transcends, that is bigger than just delivering the car or selling the phone. Once again, the big point here is performance isn't just function. The client assumes the computer you sold him is going to work. So what else are you going to do? What else are you going to say? What else are you going to provide that client that's bigger than just selling that computer? And it all relates, once again, to trust, distinction, and commitment. Remember those. And if you can integrate that into your sales performance, then you begin to earn a sustainable relationship. So some of the techniques there are very obvious. After the sale, call your client. That's performance. That's not function, right? Because you already made the sale. They already left the lot with the car. They already bought the phone. They bought the computer. But if you call them a couple of days later and say, is everything okay? That's your performance. That's a sustainable relationship. It's an obvious thing to do, but most people don't do it. And how long does it take to make that phone call? Maybe a couple of minutes. But it demonstrates trust, distinction, and commitment because, again, the functionality of the computer speaks for itself. It works. But if you call the client after the fact, it's part of your performance, it's part of your trust, it's part of your commitment, it's part of your distinction. Again, it's not just a function. Make sense? Call me, contact me. Again, my website, connectionwithak.now.com, connectionwithak.now.com. My phone number, 505-604-9081. And you can download my app Connection now as well. My email, Jeffrey, jeffrey.77@gmail.com. Once again, at the end of the day, you have a fingerprint, you have a brand. It's what people think about you after you leave the room, after the sale. And if you can integrate reasons why people should trust you, what makes you different than anyone else in your industry, and your commitment to your clients, that's part of your brand that's bigger than your business card, than your brochure, than the company you work for. Because keep in mind, all these techniques we've talked about are very obvious. And the beauty of these techniques is they're transportable. You take them everywhere you go because your brand doesn't just stay in the office when you clock out. It's part of who you are. That's the whole point, in summary, of all these techniques. It's beginning to understand your brand based on trust, distinction, commitment, and of course performance, and owning that brand in everything you do. It transcends just the transaction. It's bigger than just the transaction, and you become part of a legacy, something bigger than just sales. Thank you. Jeffrey Candelaria, Connection Now 03 LLC.